Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started. Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems built on stacks secured by Bitcoin. Today, we have a really special guest. We're talking to Ragnar. They had a really good conversation this week with Munib and Jake Blockchain and Ragnar, where we were talking, where you guys were talking about Bitcoin maximalism. You're talking about stacks, talking about Monero, privacy, talking about trust in a digital world, talking about how the evolution of Bitcoin and stacks will look over the coming years. Today, this conversation is mostly going to be about stacks is a Bitcoin layer for smart contracts, but we're going to talk about a lot of topics today, and we're super stoked to have you, Ragnar. Before we jump in, James, Ragnar, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Friday?
Oh, doing great. I tell you, there's been a lot of activity going on this week, and you just love to see the discussions, and I feel like it's really useful for the community, and just excited to have Ragnar on to talk about more of it.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited as well to talk to you guys, and I love the momentum that we're seeing, just stacks by itself, and then this last couple of weeks with people trying to be more intelligent in Bitcoin, getting some really good people back on our side. So everything's looking great. Summer's been treating me well, had some good beach days, so all good on my end.
That's awesome to hear. Ragnar, so I'm on the West Coast, U.S., near Seattle, and Hoddle Stacks James, he's near Washington, D.C. area. Where are you about?
Oh, I'm in the Intermountain West, but now I'm traveling.
Okay, very cool. So, hey, let's jump in here, and you had a really interesting background, and I didn't even know that you had been around early with the Bitcoin OGs and just kind of watching Bitcoin participating in. Can you just tell us more about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I got my first Bitcoin in 2011 and have done a few things in Bitcoin. My main thing I've done, I would say, was I had a startup called VLOX where I used color coins, Bitcoin color coins, to create basically a token for real estate deeds. And we did a program with Cook County's government real estate office. Cook County's, I think, the second largest county in the United States, so that people could transfer ownership of their property via the Bitcoin blockchain using these colored coins. And we did one successful transaction. It was the first one ever done using any blockchain, and maybe the only one since then. So that was like 2000 and 2016, 2017. But my startup was just too early. So that's kind of the main thing. I've done a few other smaller things. But in terms of like pre-Bitcoin, I have a pretty varied background. I've worked in medical research and healthcare, and then in construction and real estate development. But I've been doing Bitcoin just full time for many years now.
That's really cool to hear, and that's funny that you say that, because a lot of times I was working at a bank back in 2016, 17, 18, and I was writing some articles on Bitcoin and how banks could adopt it, and I was just really early on that stuff too. So to hear you were here actually building a startup for real estate that can leverage the power of tokenization, I mean, that was super early.
Yeah, really early. I still think it can be done in the future. But yeah, so in 2018, I moved on from trying to force Bitcoin onto real estate and vice versa. But I'm really happy with Stacks. Coming back to Stacks, like I remember when Namecoin came out in, was it 2011, 12 maybe? and really like Namecoin. Satoshi worked on it a little bit, and then when Blockstack came out, I thought it was really interesting, but I didn't do much in the early days of Blockstack at all. But got back into stacks, I guess at the end of last year. I really kind of came back, but really this year I've been working almost full time on an app that we're building. So yeah, I love stacks and pretty happy with everything today.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You've been around so long. You've probably seen so many commentators and names in the space kind of come and go. And we have this kind of class of Bitcoiners today that are providing their colored commentary and all that. And just interesting to hear of like how much of a difference you see in the people today, the voices that are out there, as opposed to say 5 to 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's a really big change. How, call it loud Bitcoin. I don't want to call it the dominant culture maximalism, because they're not. They're the far minority of people who own Bitcoin, but I'll say the loudest. And those people, it's very, very different than when at least I got started in 2011. I mean, there's always characters in every movement and every time, but definitely it's gone backwards. In the earlier days, at least when I was involved, it was a lot more open. It was a lot more focused on solutions. It was more about using Bitcoin to, build a parallel system. And then that just has slowly devolved into this maximalism. And maximalism, I think we need to go to the core of what it is, because people kind of go around the fringes. But how we got here with maximalism didn't start in the last 2 years or 3 years, even 4 years. I think it really started in 2012. Once people made the assertion that Bitcoin is inherently morally good. Yeah, there you go.
I love this one, by the way, that you posted, because I remember those the memes, like with the kind of wizards just talking about magic internet money.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when that the picture on the left here on Reddit, when that came out and they were talking about what's an image we could use. So this is why I tweeted that. So yeah, back then you can see on the left it was about openness and not taking everyone that seriously. Let's build solutions to today. But how we got here today, I think it's important to realize it's not just happened in the last 2 or 3 years. It's not just a few characters. It's not. Like, we have to go to the core, the heart of maximalism, and that is the premise, the assumption that Bitcoin is inherently moral, that Bitcoin isn't a neutral software tool you could use for good and bad purposes. It's not that Bitcoin is a means to an end. Maximalism is based on the assumption that Bitcoin is the end itself. It's morally good. And so when your assumption is that Bitcoin is inherently morally good, and second, Bitcoin is the only blockchain that is inherently morally good, you have consequences from that. The first consequence is that any other blockchain is inherently morally bad. And second, anyone who uses any other blockchain is inherently morally bad. That is how we got where we are today.
Mm-hmm. I thought that point that you brought up, and I haven't heard it framed that way, that this is a moral, this is more around morality, that Bitcoin is the almost held like that a religious culture. And I know Munib has talked about this. It really, the light bulb went off for me, and then I said, okay, that is the perfect way to frame it, that people in the Bitcoin maxi ranks, and I've started to see a lot of, since the whole Nick Carter debates and open conversations, I've seen a lot more people come around to the idea of that it's really toxic, and it doesn't actually go with the ethos of what Bitcoin truly is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of people have noticed that maximalism has these elements of a cult. And I don't even like to say religion, because I think religion can be very uplifting and productive and meaningful. It's a cult. And so people say, why is that? And I say that it's foundational premise is what led us here. And so once you believe that you are the only one with the truth, well, you don't need to take other people seriously. You don't need to listen to their arguments. You don't need to look at the facts. You don't need to consider the possibility that maybe Bitcoin isn't perfect. You don't need to consider the possibility that maybe you are acting in an immoral way. Like these maximalists really truly believe they're not doing anything wrong, that they can treat anyone however they want because they're Bitcoin only. And so if you're a priest, you can't be a sinner. And that's why it's gotten so extreme, with seemingly no accountability or self-reflection.
Yeah. I was just going to say, yeah, I think the people that fall down into this kind of pit of circular logic, I think if they were confronted with the facts that, you know, we have an uncertain future with Bitcoin. There's no guarantees that it becomes this unit of account, or that it just does what everybody says it's going to do. And if people are confronted with that reality, I think they start realizing, wait a second, that means all of these decisions and these actions actually matter. You're not a passive participant, you're an active participant.
Yeah, and you see people trying to have logical debates, like with maximalists. You try to present them with facts and the data, and it doesn't get far, because they're just saying you're an apologist for shitcoins, and what you're doing is just trying to argue for shitcoins. And so it's like, we talked about this on the Twitter space, with Munib, where we said, how do we resolve this? Like, how do we break through and try to fix this problem that maximalism has created? And we said, well, there's two approaches. One is just build the tools, present the facts, be the reasonable person. But, we said that that's tough, because they're not basing their opinions on those things. It's a moral question. And so if you want to try to resolve this problem of maximalism, you might have to go to the moral argument and point out the moral failings of maximalism, which is that if you take this maximalist route, you are demonizing all other projects, regardless of the good that they do. Like, we saw this with Tornado Cash, right? Like, Tornado Cash really is a great privacy tool for Ethereum. So here's this other chain that everyone hates, and I don't like Ethereum at all, but I'm not going to call it a shitcoin. I mean, look, like, the fact is Ethereum has produced some tools, some applications that Bitcoin can't, and they actually work pretty darn well. And so when you demonize every other chain, you're actually demonizing applications that help us get away from the state, that help us get away from big tech, that help us get away from mega corporations. Just because it's not digital cash doesn't mean these other tools don't help us. And so that's a moral argument against maximalism, that they're actually defeating our larger goals of trying to gain greater autonomy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'm also curious too, because early in 2017, as you know better than anyone, there wasn't, even when you saw the ICO craze, there wasn't a lot of information and deep technical analysis on what is Bitcoin and how do block times resolve, and how does mining work. And so that was just starting to like, written content was starting to come out, really. And I think what really taught me more about Bitcoin was Stacks, because I believe at that time mostly Ethereum and Stacks had actual really good technical analysis on how each of their own chains work, and then Stacks, or Blockstack at the time, had more information on how does it work with Bitcoin. So I'm just curious, how did you get learn about Stacks? Did you know about it since Namecoin?
Yeah, Yeah, I did. I followed Namecoin, and then I followed when Blockstack came out. I didn't do anything with Blockstack, but I came back to Stacks, not on accident, but I had this idea for the app I'm building right now is called Trajan. And basically, we use NFTs in a new way, I think. And so I was looking for a way to implement my idea, and I knew Bitcoin couldn't do it because Bitcoin doesn't have native NFTs. I mean, NFTs started on Bitcoin with Counterparty, but anyways, so I didn't look closely at Bitcoin. I looked at Ethereum, I looked at Solana, I looked at a couple different things, and then somehow I can't remember now, but I got back to Stacks because I saw there were Stacks NFTs. Can't remember where, but anyways, I came across NFTs on Stacks, and I thought, well, wait a minute, Stacks, yeah, that's Bitcoin. It kind of interoperates with Bitcoin, and I found Stacks through trying to build an application, and I wanted the best blockchain to do that, and Stacks was the winner, like by far.
Mm-hmm. How far along are you? Do you guys have a team building this out?
So yeah, I have a CTO, Jonathan Hammond, and we've received 2 grants from the Stacks Foundation, and we've built our MVP, and we've done some preliminary private alpha testing, and yeah, we're just working on trying to have a public release. We're still working on some things, so yeah, that's where we are.
Sweet. Can you leak a little alpha and tell us what the project is?
Sure. So we're basically a reputation and identity system. The concept is to digitize. The concept is to build your reputation into digital assets. So the idea is that your skills and character are one of a kind. They're non-fungible, and that you could use Trajan to digitize your abilities and character into non-fungible tokens, NFTs. That's the short version.
And I'm gonna beat James here to the punch and say that's actually really awesome, because for the Cerulean marketplace that we built and it's launched in the beta version, when we build a Web3 version, we want to design a way for people to be able to capture their reputation and own that. So what you're building, we would love to talk to you later on too.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. We are looking to try to see how we could integrate with any other projects. I think, identity, having a better identity is key going forward for any Web3 project. And on Trajan, the NFTs act as endorsements. So let's say you're a Clarity developer. I will send you an NFT that denotes this is for being a good Clarity developer. And then other people can do the same. And then over time, you have your gallery of skill endorsements that are NFTs. And maybe you have 10 for Clarity and 5 for marketing and 3 for JavaScript and, whatever it might be. So then, and obviously, you keep these in your wallet. So you have your identity based on your Stacks wallet, and hopefully you have a .btc domain. So then you built this identity off of your .btc identity, and your identity is actually a accumulation of your endorsements and the people who have endorsements. So it's kind of a new way to have data points about you that are, positive.
Yeah, I really love that. We talk about the future of work a lot. And, when we talk about it, it's like, you want people to be able to showcase their skills and to be able to carry those forward. And people are a lot more than, kind of how we have it in today's world with a resume or a job title. And, we're really looking to try and provide like gig work. So people have all kinds of skills that they can bring to the table. And, what you're building is something too. I think it's important that people are incentivized to use one wallet, and over time they can kind of really show off their work. And, at that point they have it all in one place, and they, can really have their who they are in the real world shine through Web3.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want, so a problem with identities has been, well, where is it? Because when you have so many options, it's hard to have a good, identity system if everyone is on completely different platforms and not interoperable. And so what makes something stick? Like why solution A sticks, but solution B doesn't stick? And we hope that with Trajan, the identity will stick because you will want to build on it. You will want to accumulate people's endorsements of your work. And so that's why you would want to stick with, with the Trajan system or with, largely with your .btc domain. The other advantage of doing it this way is because they're NFTs as skill endorsements and character endorsements, you can see these on other apps, right? So you can log in with your wallet and on another NFT app, you can see these skill endorsement NFTs, we call them medals. You could see that on other platforms. So if Trajan disappears, you still take all of your NFT skill endorsements with you wherever you go. And so you could see how it could possibly integrate with some other applications.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing. And we are super bullish on Ryder for that reason, because I think, and this is what James and I, we created the Cerulean Marketplace because there was a need for people to be able to go to do it in a work in a trustless way, pay each other in a trustless way. Even if you work in a DAO, and we have the Zero Authority DAO, even if you have these people that you still want to do it. You want to pay them in a trustless way that says, hey, you're going to do these things for the DAO. Here's some token from our treasury, right? So we would love a way to integrate DIDs, decentralized IDs eventually, but even more so on our roadmap, we've contemplated how could we at least allow people to own their own NFT as far as it relates to the reputation that they earn in certain protocols, certain DAOs, certain communities, and also bring that to wherever they go. So here, our Cerulean Marketplace is going to be one of many places where you could see that data, right? I do see a lot of DAOs, including yours, building solutions where anyone can showcase this reputation and their work history that they have earned over time.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're in a DAO, you could, let's say we're in the same DAO, and Trajan isn't a DAO, we're just kind of a company and application. But let's say you and I are in the same DAO, and I think you've done good work in the DAO, and so I want to give you an endorsement. So I go on to Trajan. Hopefully you've created an account there. If not, you get a sign up link. But I give you this NFT skill endorsement and for your work in the DAO. And then other people in the DAO visit your Trajan profile and see, oh, look at he has a good reputation in the DAO, or maybe in the DAO could have a way to display NFTs in there. So that's the beauty of NFTs. And it's so funny because people think NFTs are just JPEGs, right? Mm-hmm. And people just aren't aware of, hey, there's actually a lot you can do with NFTs. And so it's pretty exciting that more and more people are seeing that.
No, that is. And I was going to switch gears a little bit here. Yesterday, I put out a tweet, and I'm interested to hear your feedback. I was saying, if the Bitcoin maxis hate Ethereum so much, wouldn't they want Stacks to make it as the smart contract layer for Bitcoin? What do you think about that, Ragnar?
Yeah, I saw your tweet about that. Here's the thing with maximalists is that they really don't care about technological progress. A lot of these people are just not tech oriented. A lot of them are not developers. They're not building a startup. They're not VCs investing in technology. They really aren't tech forward thinking people. Maximalism is really about getting rich. That's kind of the dirty secret of maximalism. All of maximalism is just HODL. That's all HODL is. That's their usernames. That's their podcast names. That's everything. And so all they care about is stacking sats and HODLing, and Ethereum or Stacks or any other thing that might have a token or cryptocurrency that someone might buy instead of buying Bitcoin, that's $1 less in their pocket. So if I have $100 and I buy $80 of Bitcoin and $20 of Stacks, people will say, well, you just made me $20 poorer by not buying Bitcoin. And so to answer your question, like, shouldn't they be rooting for Stacks? They should, but they don't, because to them, blockchain cryptos, it's only about, getting rich in fiat terms specifically. And you see this argument everywhere. So when you will say, you know what, like, I like Monero has a lot of utility, it's more private, it's more fungible, 9 times out of 10, their argument will be that it isn't as good of a store of value as Bitcoin. And that tells you all you need to know, that they only see utility if it gives maximum return on investment. So that's why they don't care about Stacks replacing Ethereum. They don't care that Monero is more fungible. They don't care that Stacks, has smart contracts. They don't care because they don't understand there's a use case beyond a speculative asset.
Yeah, I always tell people that, especially Bitcoiners, what I tell them is, one day they want Bitcoin to be the unit of account, which means that everything's going to be priced in Bitcoin, which you take that to its logical conclusion means that you're selling Bitcoin for other things that includes other assets, other things that you think are good investments. And it's kind of funny because it's what they all aim for, but they don't like to admit that their aim is actually for people, to have things priced and sold in Bitcoin. So it's kind of a funny conundrum.
Yeah, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance. I mean, I think of maximalism as sort of a maze that doesn't have an exit, because they box themselves into these corners where on one hand they say, you need a HODL, that Bitcoin is the hardest money. Why would you spend hard money? You want to spend your soft money, so spend fiat, right? Don't spend Bitcoin. But then they're in a box, because now you say, well, what about unit of account? Well, if you discourage people from spending Bitcoin, it's not going to be used as a unit of account. And so it's just like one more contradiction that maximalists get themselves into. And it's just, there's no logic to it. It's all just greed.
Yeah. Do you think that there will be a time where, say, Ethereum at some point, gains a lot of market share on Bitcoin or something, that the maxis, the people that are kind of left on the sidelines, come to a realization that they should be a little more open to this? Or do you just kind of view them as gold bugs and they're just going to forever be the way they are?
I think, fortunately, when they have such a simple mind, then it's easier to change. So yeah, I think if they see that some other asset is going to give them a better ROI, then they'll switch to that. They won't say it on Twitter, but they'll do it. I mean, like, here's the best example. I don't know if you guys were at the Bitcoin 2021, or let's see, was it? Yeah, this last year's
Bitcoin Unleashed.
Yeah, Bitcoin. No, sorry, it was the Bitcoin Magazine conference.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So at the Bitcoin Magazine conference this year, they had some panel. I can't remember which one, but there was a panel discussion, and the guy hosting it said, "Oh, okay, to start out, I want to see if this is a maximalist conference, a maximalist crowd." And he said, "Okay, everyone raise your hand who owns Bitcoin." And then it shows the crowd, and almost everyone raised their hand. And then he said, "Okay, raise your hand if you also own other coins." And like, it was still like 85% of people raised their hands. And so, I mean, if you're at a Bitcoin conference and like 80%, 90% of the attendees raise their hands saying that they own other coins, I mean, that tells you all you need to know about how tiny maximalism is, and that most people own other coins if they also hold Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's a great point. I I thought you were also going to say raise your hand if you own Bitcoin. Then everyone raise your hand. Raise your hand if you own Ethereum. No one does it, but then raise your hand if you own NFTs, and then you see people raise their hands again. Well,
Oh, yeah.
where did you get all those NFTs if you don't own any other supposed S coins, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but you bring up a good point. Like NFTs have brought in new people to crypto, and I think in a good way. And, another problem with, I don't want to dwell on maximalism this whole time, but another problem with maximalism is because you only allow yourself to think about Bitcoin and as a speculative asset, you miss out on cool things like NFTs that have real world utility. And not only that, you miss out, you simply can't understand other people. So when people say, hey, I had this NFT, I like it, it does this thing, whatever. If you're a maximalist, you can't even understand. It's like speaking calculus to your dog. They're incapable of entertaining something else because of their moral stance. But hey, what NFTs is what brought me back to Stack. So
Well, and I brought up the NFT scenario because I think James was posting the other day. We're starting to see a new cohort of people come in, and I think it was a girl using NeoSwap. So she is using NFTs and probably doesn't even own any Bitcoin at all. But like, hey, I'm new to blockchain space and ecosystems, so I do think that is pretty cool to see a whole new generation of people come in and not even understand Bitcoin, but they're interested in NFTs. Then by which, because it's on stacks and secured by Bitcoin, they start to learn about, and a lot of people, including myself, will say, I learned more about finance, macro and micro econ, learning about Bitcoin than I actually did in school. So that's a lot of people say that.
yeah, and I'll add to that. Those are good comments. I'll add that what a lot of at least Bitcoin people miss, and maybe others, is that NFTs are digital assets, right? They actually have some value. Maybe it's 50 cents. Some are hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe. But the point is that NFTs have some value, whether you like it or not, they do. And so and they live on chain, right? And so this is another class of assets that aren't part of, Wall Street, the government. They're not stocks in Facebook. They're not big bank, debts. It's this other little thing that adds to a new economy, a new financial system that is based on blockchains, and it's not based on central banks, and it's not based on Wall Street. It's just based on open source software. And so even though there's been a lot of like stupidity with NFTs, clearly, and all sorts of bad things with NFTs, in the long run, they're a net good for a new economy where we have assets and commerce occurring on chain rather than through the existing Bitcoin system. And you could use it for that, and it's kind of more fun because it's visual. So in the long term, NFTs, people don't realize it, actually help us gain greater financial autonomy.
Yeah.
Well said.
I think it's important too. Like I've been pondering this. I don't think I've tweeted it out yet, but it's a question I've been pondering is that would Satoshi himself trade one of his Bitcoins for, say, the Mona Lisa or for intellectual property of Mickey Mouse or something like that? And it's like, if you say yes, then we're just haggling over price of what these things have value. And I think that's something people have to overcome is like, yeah, there's a lot of things they're just JPEGs and Lord knows what will happen with them, but there's also a lot of innovation that, will have value in the future. So.
Yeah. And going back to my startup Trajan for a second, not to shill it too much, but what NFTs allow us to do that we couldn't do in Web 2.0 or even just with coins is it allows us to create digital value from our character, from our skill sets. So up until now, if you have a certain skill set and positive like personality traits, like you're easy to get along with, you're a team player, you're a leader, the only way that you could see value from that would be to be an employee of a company, or maybe an entrepreneur. But when you can turn your skill endorsements into NFTs, you actually have a new way to sort of create value based on just who you are. And you could be completely anonymous, but you can then have this new way to kind of digitize your character. And that's not possible, I don't think, without NFTs. Maybe coins, actual coins, but I don't think fungible coins are a good way to do it. So it's like one more good thing about NFTs, that's just another layer of the financial system that's not part of Wall Street and banks.
No, that's a really good take on it as well, because many months ago, James and I had many conversations around their creator economy, and there's going to be mechanisms where you want to fund creators for just creative goods, and that what you just described, I didn't put it in that context, but when you have reputation, you have history, you have like a BNS or a .eth address, and you can say this anon person around the globe somewhere has done a ton of work with different DAOs and projects. There's a ton of credibility. Let's go ahead and fund this person for the next creative work that they want to do. How cool would that be?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the other cool thing about NFTs is you obviously use a wallet to send the transaction, right? And so if I were to, with my wallet, I sign the transaction to send you an NFT. The other thing we're going to do on our app is that you could write a recommendation for someone, and then you sign that message with your wallet, Hero Wallet, and maybe Xverse Wallet as well. So it makes it more credible. It becomes, we're trying to create this web of credibility where everyone can trace back who recommended who. We can verify, hey, that was James who recommended Ragnar for that. And it's just more credible. And we know that when someone makes a recommendation, we know who their identity is. It's their .btc domain. So it's more powerful than on, like, Glassdoor is one example. So you go to Glassdoor, you're looking at a company that you might work for or invest in, and you see these reviews. Well, you don't always know, like, are those reviews legitimate? Because companies have been caught writing themselves good recommendations on Glassdoor. And so that possibility is reduced on something like our app Trajan or other methods, to where, hey, you can't do that because you have a digital identity linked to a wallet. So going back to your point about credibility, NFTs and being able to sign statements with your wallet can build credibility.
Yeah, and want to give a couple shout outs. Sats Runner, you're not late, you're right on time, brother. And thanks so much for from Naz Redden. So here's the photo they sent it over to us, and I think this is what you were talking about here, Ragnar. Just like everything will eventually be tokenized.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I see it. Yeah, and see that, and this is what you miss out if you're a maximalist and just think everything is a scam and a sin. Is, hey, this is kind of cool. This is a new way to do things and a better way to do things. And that's why I say that maximalism damages Bitcoin. It damages freedom technology. We could still be skeptical of stuff. We could still call out scams, but you're going to miss out on this, and you're damaging people and the larger economy by missing out on, like, this is a great slide, data, NFTs from personal data. It's just a good example.
Yeah, totally. And a great another point of reference, Naz Redden 1205. BTC maxis don't even know what a smart contract is.
That's something I say a lot, is that people that are stackers that understand stacks are folks that are Bitcoiners that understand the value of smart contracts. So that's, I guess,
well, no, it's funny because it's true. Here's the thing is people ask, well, why can't you do stacks on Lightning Network? And it's like, well, you can't do smart contracts like on the Lightning Network. You need to have state, right? It doesn't, like the way smart contracts work, you need like the blockchain. You can't do it on like Lightning Network. Like they really don't understand what a smart contract is. It's no joke.
That's a really fair point. Also, Ragnar, wanted to get your take. I mean, also, do you guys have a Twitter for what you guys are building?
Yeah, I think we have like 3.5 followers. It's Trajan app.
Do you mind if we pull it up?
Yeah, pull it up.
All right. How do you spell that?
TRAJAN APP, Trajan app.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. No, I think this is great. And let me give that a follow right now.
Right. Now we have 7 followers.
I followed too, so you're up to 7.5 now.
All right. Hey, we have 14 followers. Man, we're blowing up.
Hey, we like to think that's the power of Zero Authority. We're just a small group of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems, man.
Yeah, look at that. Jeez.
Hey, well, if you're watching this, definitely give Ragnar a follow on Trajan app, and we're super stoked, and we're just like really appreciative that you can make some time, Ragnar, and join us on the Zero Authority live stream today. This is such a great conversation, and you know, honestly, I want more people when they're coming into Bitcoin not to see the maxis as the first content creation. I do want them to start tuning into like Bankless, tune into what we're doing. We have Kaylee and I know Teflon NFTs on Bitcoin, Jake Blockchain, the Airdrop podcast. I hope more people find them, learn about stacks, then learn about Bitcoin and NFTs and so on and so forth.
Yeah, Ragnar, I was curious too. When you come across somebody that's new to crypto and Bitcoin and all of that, what's typically your advice to them? I love to hear kind of how people pitch people that aren't in this world yet.
You know, I usually have them start with the white paper just because it's so concise. And so I send them there. And then I've actually now started to send people to stacks, depending on if they're kind of advanced enough. But that's about it. I mean, I kind of, my 10 friends in life know, you know, that I'm into Bitcoin and have for all these years. So I don't really need to tell them much at this point. They've largely tuned me out. Although actually I take it back. I did have a friend finally in 2017 buy Bitcoin after telling him for years and years to buy Bitcoin. So he calls me up in December of 2017 and says, hey, I finally got some Bitcoin on Coinbase. And that was like reached the all-time high of, what was it, 20,000. And then a month later, it just crashed, burned to the ground. And he called me up. He's like, what the heck? You know, like it crashed. All these years you told me to buy Bitcoin. And he sold his Bitcoin.
Yep.
So I'm very careful these days about, you know, kind of pointing people there because in my experience, they buy at the top. And so anyways, but the few who do, yeah, I just send them the white paper and now to stacks if they're more interested.
Yeah, it's interesting too because there's so many layers that to add on because people are like, oh, well, what about this project or this coin? And it's like just focus and learn why Bitcoin's needed. You know, I think everybody kind of comes to Bitcoin when they start realizing why it's necessary in this world, and then they build on. I think it's good for them to build on that. So.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I was going to ask you too, Ragnar, before I kind of segued. I was going to ask you, there's a lot of building on stacks now. Have you been surprised to see the growth of the ecosystem?
You know, I have to say I'm not surprised because it's such a good foundation. technically speaking, the software itself. And then you've got the Stacks Foundation, which has been funding grants. You've got smart people who are in there. When you first enter the community, like if you join the Stacks Discord server or some other ones that are out there relating to Stacks, like I think people are pretty nice and answer your questions and have ideas. And so I'm not that surprised considering, the kind of people that Stacks attracts. Like it's not about, hey, how can I do a startup that has this token for no reason so I just get rich? Like, people in Stacks, I don't think a token is bad, but they also are smart enough to realize they probably don't use it. There's a few uses. So yeah, I mean, it's great to see the momentum in Stacks.
Admittedly too, the ones, and we are very fortunate in this regard where we've built some really great reputation and relations with people in the Stacks ecosystem. All of these apps that we know of, and we spoke to the founders, we could say without a shadow of a doubt, they are building something because they believe in a purpose in the mission of Bitcoin. I'm looking at Pravica. They're building an email solution with privacy. Now, today it's probably not, they don't have, millions of users, but I do believe, and James and I talk about this over time, privacy, censorship resistant, those are going to matter. It's decentralized systems. Those are going to matter in a world where things can get, centralized systems can just shut you down,
Yeah, privacy has always been a long-term direction that blockchain and crypto has to head towards because it's censorship resistant. And like we saw with Tornado Cash, people are waking up to it. So like this, yeah, I mean, going back to keep beating up on Maximalist, but hey, that's Friday.
Hey, Friday, brother.
I'm going to let loose here. Yeah, so if you're like Corey from Swan Bitcoin and you're beating up on Stacks, it's like, here's this application that you just gave an example of that helps privacy and communications. That's what Corey is fighting. When he's fighting Stacks, he's fighting Pravica, and he's fighting this. Here it is, Web 3.0 messaging and blockchain enabled conversations. That's what he's fighting against. Like, so tell me that Maximalism isn't like an enemy of freedom. I mean, and then tell me that Stacks is a scam. Look what you can build on it. So, I mean, the evidence is right there.
Yeah.
It's funny seeing all these people too. They're like, all of a sudden they become very savvy and backers of the SEC and other countries banning quote unquote shit coins. And it's like, man, what happened to these people?
Yeah, and that's another change from Bitcoin from the early days is if back in 2011, 2012, even 2013, people thought, oh, we're arguing we hope the SEC shuts down other chains. I mean, that never would have happened, I think, like ever. You never see that argument like years ago. And it just shows like some desperation. I mean, and it shows the hypocrisy of Maximalists again. So going back to it, because they think they're inherently morally good and Bitcoin is inherently morally good, they're willing to use the state against other coins, and they justify that, because of Bitcoin's morally good. Like Max Kaiser, he tweeted something in support of the Chinese government shutting down, I think it was like advertising for crypto is what he did. So, yeah.
Not to beat a dead horse, when I saw this tweet, I was taken aback. I thought he got hacked, honestly. I honestly thought he got hacked and someone was just posting random shit on his Twitter. And after a while, I had to really just, and he really, he really went after Stacks, and the Stacks ecosystem really responded. And I'm sure at some level, a lot of Bitcoin maxis get a rise out of just poking the bears. But I do think too, just to see all of the responses, because previously, and this was, I think, last year where Munib went on the Bankless podcast and the live stream, and he debated against some Ethereum folks, and up to that point, we just kind of let Bitcoin toxic maxis and people saying bad things about stacks. We would just let them say whatever they wanted. But I do think having these kind of responses that are open for the public, it helps people understand, okay, you know what, you're calling this a scam. Let me go read why you're calling this a scam. Okay, you didn't really actually have a response, but now I see Munib replying. I'll see Jude replying. I see Ragnar replying. I see Trevor and To and all the I've seen Checkmate reply and Universe reply, and I'm like, okay, if someone who has no idea about Bitcoin or stacks, they see this and they're like, okay, stacks is a scam. Well, let me see why. And then they read all these comments. They have to come to the conclusion this guy's a moron, and it's just it's literally baseless.
Yeah, and it's such a contrast. Like this thread that you have on screen here is when you see the stacks people countering, and they're generally intelligent comments based on facts and logic. And then you see the maximalist responses, and it's all like memes and shitcoin and scam and insults and, and gifts. That's all it is. You think, wow, one side of this is intelligent and the other side is like not very intelligent. And then I tweeted something about Corey the other day. He like had a meltdown. He did. I don't know if you saw my tweet somewhere.
I did.
Yeah. And so when you see that, you're looking at his tweet. I mean, it's not me making it up or anyone else. You just go to Corey's feed and see this tweet that he put out, and you're like, this is not a rational person. Like, I can't take him seriously.
Well, to your point too, he's running a company, and that company recently had a cyber incident. You would think this person running a company, they probably should be focused on that, but how they're spending their time is going after the stacks ecosystem that, like you said, if you're against stacks creating decentralized, censorship resistant, open source, permissionless systems, you're literally standing against freedom. I don't know how other to put that, because you hit it on the nail. You hit the nail on the head there, Ragnar.
Yeah. I mean, and their email. It was their email, or I think marketing provider. But that's the second time they had another hack of a third party. I think it was their content, their customer management system, but that was also hacked. Now you could say, it's not the fault of Swan Bitcoin that their third party they use that happened, but it's like now it's two of them, and it's like, well, if you're a KYC AML company and you have like customer data, maybe you should build your own solution, or I don't know. But if you're on Twitter all day, like ranting and raving and foaming at the mouth, like if I'm a Swan Bitcoin customer, I think I would look for a better solution that hasn't had these issues, and the CEO is more, well balanced. And Corey, he kind of slightly lightly doxed Plan B last time he had a meltdown. And the thing that people need to realize is, when you sign up for any KYC AML service, right, you have to give them your name and your phone number. And if you get to a certain level, then you have to upload a picture of yourself, your passport, like social security number. And so any CEO of that company can go through their customer list and see your information, see your driver's license, see your date of birth. And so do you want to trust your personally identifying information to a company whose CEO has in the past sort of doxed someone? I wouldn't. And I'm in this Telegram group, and there's someone who works at a company, and they have to do KYC. And he says, yeah, like I can go in and I could look up anyone. And so it's kind of scary that if you see Corey get so worked up over people, that like, what if you piss Corey off and you're a Swan Bitcoin customer? Like, are you sure he's not going to look you up and be like, this asshole? You know what I mean? So yeah, sketchy.
What you're saying too is like, aren't we trying to build decentralized systems so we don't have these central authorities doing this to people? And then here we have a person that says they believe in the ethos of Bitcoin doing what we are trying to get away from.
Yeah. You know, sorry, go ahead, James.
Oh, I was just going to say, you've seen it with other people where they were telling people Celsius and Voyager, BlockFi, all these things were great products. And, people, sell your office chair, earn an interest on these centralized finance applications. And it's like, okay, guys, and some of them were applauding when Terra and invested in Bitcoin. And it's kind of funny. They whatever their ethos are, it changes when it comes to number go up, I guess.
And that's the thing. Like, for example, with KYC AML stuff, I think it's not ideal. I don't want to hit people over the head too hard who go that route. I just think we should discourage it. But the fact is, what really gets me about Corey and just so many maximalists is that they think they're so self-righteous and they're these anti-scam people, but like KYC is extremely dangerous, like extremely dangerous. And so why do they have the moral authority when they're all sponsored by KYC companies? They run KYC companies. Like, it's fine you do that, but do not be the hypocrite that calls everyone else like horrible names. Well, look what you're enabling. It's better not to be judgmental. I mean, when you're judgmental, you're going to be judged. And they live in a glass house and they're throwing rocks. Like, bad idea.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Ragnar, we had a question come in from Satrunner. Do you see Trajan being used with real identities or a way to collaborate to get better understanding of someone without doxing each other?
Oh yeah, thanks, Satrunner. He's helped us out. So
yeah,
Sats. Yeah, definitely. It can be used. Like, I obviously have an account in my name at Trajan, and I hope to build up my reputation. And then maybe I have a pseudonym as well with an account on there. So yeah, it could be used for either purpose. And you definitely you don't need to dox anyone. Problem with pseudonyms, as you guys know, is it's harder to build up a reputation than a real world identity, because you just can't do certain things when you're pseudonymous. So we're hoping Trajan can help that a little bit and just help pseudonymous identities gain greater, credibility over time. Because like, you're not going to have a LinkedIn account that's pseudonymous. I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a few out there, but most people who are pseudonymous like can't really use LinkedIn. It's just not set up that way. So yeah, hopefully that will help things out, Satrunner, if I answered the question right.
Yeah, we had a comment from Kaylee earlier. Appreciate it, Kaylee. She said, "Well said" on the comments a few comments ago when we were just talking about the use cases for stacks and secured by Bitcoin and just some of the just toxic Bitcoin maxis. Hey, we're coming on time here. This is Ragnar. This is a great conversation, and we could go another hour if if you let us. But just to wrap things up here, we do believe a new generation of people are going to come in. They're going to learn about stacks before they even learn about Bitcoin. What are and I know you tell people to read the white paper. What are you looking forward to as that next generation comes in?
I'm looking forward to seeing a full tech stack that helps us get away from the state and big banks and mega tech. We need, there you go. We need so much more than digital gold. We need so much more than a unit of account and a store of value. I mean, we need I call it like the freedom tech stack. And so as more people come into stacks and even other things, whether it's an NFT or whether it's like this email application, an identity system, every new little app that comes on board, an NFT, is someone using software that's not Facebook and Google and isn't bank software. It's software that is blockchain software. It's not outside of the state. Every little, like even like Stacks degens, right? Here you have on the right, gamified, built on Stacks and secured by Bitcoin. Like, guess what? That's a way to earn a currency, like without having to go to a bank and give them your driver's license. It's a way to earn a currency. I mean, that's what I'm looking forward to, is all these little things that add up to this whole new economy and software stack.
Yep. And me and Zero, we talk all the time about the pseudonymous economy, and it's like we have an ecosystem large enough, and this is just going to grow over time, where we can already start doing this. Like we can start having really economic growth occur on chain, and people earn real incomes, whether it's side hustles or anything else. And that, to me, that's important. Like, we want to create a whole parallel economy where people feel safe and secure with their data. We have interoperable code. We're able to build off of each other's work. And, just imagine the world that we're all going to be able to make.
Yeah, I really I love conversations like this too, because we talk about the future, we talk about what's happening today. One other thing I do want to point out for people, the podcast you went on with what Bitcoin did, I thought that was just a good conversation too, and I think too some of your writings on Monero and Bitcoin, I do see Monero as being a really great privacy coin too, and I know Zcash exists out there too. I don't think Monero Zcash get enough credit for what they've accomplished as far as like with zero knowledge proofs too, and in the proof of work space. But before we wrap, Ragnar, where would you like people to go to find more information about you?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I have my homepage, ragnarly.com, ragnarly.com. That's this right here on the screen. So ragnarly.com. And then also I'm on Twitter, same name, Ragnarly.
Awesome. Well, this was a really great conversation, Ragnar. We hope you stop by again. We hope when you get really set up with Trajan and when it gets rocking and rolling, we'd love for you to come on, show us a demo, show the community a demo, and stop by anytime.
Oh, thanks for having me on, and I'd really appreciate it. Once we're up and running, to come back and actually do the screen share stuff. That'd be fun. So, thanks, guys. I really like talking to you. This is fun.
Yeah, it was really great. Great way to start the weekend, and stay in touch. Really excited for what you're building, and we hope to be able to work together too.
Yeah, absolutely. And this coming Monday, don't forget that we will be talking to our friends at BitFlow, stable swap DEX on Stack. So they're trying to build out this decentralized permissionless systems where you can lock your Bitcoin, earn additional rewards for the stable swap. So that's pretty cool. DLC is still building and going to do some cool things with the native Bitcoin too. So the future is bright. I'm excited for all the updates coming and what people can actually do in Web3 with Stacks and Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah, I briefly looked over what they're doing. So Monday.
Yeah, Monday, and appreciate it, Ragnar. You guys have a great weekend. You guys take care.
All right, thank you.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started.